Recording in progress.
You all set? Welcome, everyone. Ooh, it sounds very loud tonight. Tonight is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair. With us in the chamber, we have some Land Use Committee members from Ward 1. We have Councillor Allison Leary. From Ward 2, Tariq Lucas. Again, I'm from Ward 3. Councillor Randy Block is from Ward 4. On Zoom, virtually with us, is Andrea Downs from Ward 5, Councillor Alan Lobovitz from Ward 6, and Councillor Stephen Farrell from Ward 8. We also have with us, not on the committee, but City Councillor Susan Albright, passing through the chamber. Online, we have Councillor Maliki. We have some wonderful staff with us tonight. Cassidy Flynn is stepping in as our clerk. Andrew Lee is here on behalf of the Law Department. Katie Wewell from the Planning Department, and I think that's it for now. If more people join, I'll be sure to introduce and welcome them. We have first a couple of what I think will be very quick items. We have 3 requests from petitioners to withdraw without prejudice. The first one is item number 341-24, which is at 52-54 Hatfield Road. And that petitioner is requesting to withdraw. Could I have a motion from someone on? Are you pointing at me? Oh, should I just do that even to, yes, why don't I am recused from this. So Vice Chair Lucas will lead us in voting on that. I'll step beyond the rail and then I'll come back. Thanks for the reminder.
Good evening. The first item is docket number 341-24, request to extend a non-conforming 2-family dwelling use to extend the non-conforming front setback and to allow a 3-story structure at 5254 Hatfield Road. We have received a letter from the petitioner requesting to withdraw this project without prejudice. I will take Councillor Lobovitz wants to move this. Any discussion on the item? Nope. We're going to do this on a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, noes? Abstentions? It passes 6-0. Thank you. Back is Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. This microphone was really loud for you too, so it's not just me. The next one we have is item 178-25, which is a request to withdraw without prejudice at 135 Hartman Road. That's Ward 8. Councillor Farrell, perhaps you would like to make the motion after, or would you rather someone else do it while you chew? No, this is just a motion to accept the request to withdraw without prejudice.
So moved, Chair. Let's accept this, please.
Thank you. We can do this on a voice vote also. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great, that one passes too. That is now 7-0 for that one. And our third and final request to withdraw without prejudice is item number 178-25 at 135 Hartman Road. That's also Ward 8. Oh, sorry, did I just do that? I'm not writing in order here. Sorry, 125-25, 50 Brayland Ave. Ward 6. Councillor Lobovitz, would you like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, point of information, is this being withdrawn too? Because I don't see that on our.
Yeah, there was a typo in the agenda, but yes, 125-25, and we can confirm this with the clerk. at 50 Brayland is also a request to withdraw. If you'll notice on the printed, on the schedule, on the agenda we received, they quote 178-25 twice rather than 125-25 once also.
So yes, I would move to accept the withdrawal. Thank you.
Cassie, I just want to be sure that I'm right, or we're all right, or we're all on the same page with this. There is a request to withdraw 125-25 at 50 Brayland. We have a motion from Counselor Lobovitz to do that. Counselor Block, are you all set with that?
I
Or not?
just want to confirm that I'm just a little confused about
It was a
this.
typo on the agenda.
No, I understand your explanation.
Oh, okay.
The further confusion is a few of us paid a visit to this location today, thinking it was a regular item on our agenda.
It's not.
And nothing was mentioned about it being withdrawn, which was,
Did you speak to the people at that home?
yes, they came out and we didn't even cross onto the property line, but they came out and greeted us and we had a nice chat. And so that reinforces my query. But if there's a written request for withdrawal, I
Yes,
support
the-
that.
the clerk
I accept
is
that.
confirming with us that this petition has officially requested to withdraw without prejudice.
Sure.
And we do have a motion. So let's vote on that unless there are any other queries on this particular item. No? All in favor of accepting their, oh, sorry, Counselor Downs?
Just quickly, we're talking 50 Brayland Avenue?
Yes, we are.
And I didn't see that in the materials. They're also requesting a withdrawal without prejudice?
Yes.
Did
It
they
was
have,
confusing to all of us, and it was just a mistake, sort of typo on the agenda, but yes, they have requested to withdraw.
okay, did they give a reason why?
They don't have to, and I'm
No.
aware of it. I did not see the letter, but the clerk is confirming.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
I don't see a hand up. Is there someone from that petition who wants to speak to this? No. Let's take a voice vote on accepting this request. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? That passes also. Sorry for the confusion on so many fronts. It makes me think that I'd like us to have another conversation about site visits and organization and communication. That's not something that will happen on the floor tonight, but why don't we as a committee put that in our discussion list? The first item we're actually going to talk about tonight, the public hearing is open for item 179-25, which is a request to allow 3 attached single-family dwellings at 8 Central Ave. We will first hear from the petitioner on this. Is that you, Mr. Lee?
It is, Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening, Lawrence Lee on behalf of the petitioner from Rosenberg, Freeman and Lee with offices at 246 Walnut Street in Newtonville. My client is here with me tonight, and Chair, with your permission, I would like to share my screen, please.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'm going to quickly bring you around the site and then give you a little bit of a history going back about a year or so of, I think we probably know what happened here, unfortunately, but I'll give you some history as a refresher and then bring you to what we propose today. So we're at 8 Central, which is in Ward 2. We are at the corner of Craft Street and Central Avenue. We're located in an MR1 zoning district. And as you can see my cursor, the blue outline is our property, and we are just on the edge of Ward 2. So right on Craft Street, that's actually the border between Wards 1 and 2. What we're looking for is a special permit for 3 single-family attached dwellings on 15,000 square foot of land. Currently, the by right use is a single and 2 family house, and the 3 family requires a special permit. So very quickly to take you back about a year or so, there was a unfortunate fire at the former house, which was on the National Historic Places. There was a 3-alarm fire. There was an unfortunate construction related fire that started and really created a hazard and rendered the property to be quite unsafe and really not salvageable. So these are just some articles that I'm showing for you tonight that I also showed about a year or so ago at the Newton Historical Commission. So after the fire, the Inspectional Services Department deemed the property unsafe and that it really was on danger of collapsing. There's some photographs of the house that was damaged, and this is some interior photographs that we had to quickly take to assess the structural integrity of the house. I can come back to any of these. And it was a very substantial damage, unfortunately. And here's some exterior. So the former house was very, very close to our next door neighbor, as you can see from this photograph. And you can see it on the site plans that I will show you at a later time. This is the assessor's map that shows the outline of what was previously there. This was carved up. This lot and our abutting property, our neighbors at 148 Crafts, was once a single parcel of land. As you can tell that they carved out just around the existing house to create this separate buildable lot back in 1996. So here in this shows the land court plan that shows the subdivision in 1996. The house next to us on Craft Street was built in 1997. These setbacks, which are not shown on this land court plan, are just at around 10 feet, just by way of reference. Here's an existing condition site plan that gives you a little bit more detail of the house that was previously there. Again, the side setbacks were just conforming to new lot standards at 10 feet, and it was quite close to the border. Here's a rendering, sorry, jumped ahead. Here's a rendering of what it may look like with a new proposed development, which is broken up into 2 different buildings. This is right at the corner again this is Central Avenue, and Craft Street is on this side. So this is a Google Earth image with a computer generated image of what the house may look like. Here's a rendering of the proposed house. There again, this is 2 different buildings on the same property. The main house is really done with a lot of the architectural, and actually the building as a whole, the project as a whole was done really with a lot of the architectural designs and spirit of it, of the house that was formerly there. My client understood very well that this is a very prominent corner that's very visible. And when he took on this project, he knew that, number one, the house that was there could not be salvaged, and 2, that he had to really put something that kind of kept the spirit alive. So here, I think the planning department noted a lot of the architectural features, the porte cochere, the covered porch, gable dormers, the ornamental features that are previously in the Queen Anne building is now trying to replicate it to a certain degree in the project. Here's another rendering. This would be at the corner of Central Avenue to the right and then Craft Street to the left. One of the things I do want to point out is that this red brick wall, it currently exists. It actually extends to our 2 abutters. So if we go down Central, it extends further towards Craft Street and on Central Avenue. And then on Craft Street, it extends further onto our abutter from which the lot was carved out. So one of the things that my client has discussed with our neighbors is that you'll see this feature, this black metal fencing that's going to be filled in. Currently, there is nothing there. What we're going to do on our property for sure is to fill it in with this black metal fence. Likewise, if our neighbors allow for us to do so, we would like to extend that feature to their properties as well too, so that it fits really right in with that corner. Here's another rendering that shows it from the Craft Street viewpoint. This is the garage of our neighbor at 158, 160 Craft Street. And again, if our neighbors allow, this wall actually is on their side of the property, and we would be happy to install the metal fencing in between just to fit from an aesthetic standpoint. This is a streetscape that shows, or street view that shows what is there currently. As you can see, these are open. And what I was referring to, this is on the Central Ave side. You see the wall extends onto our abutting property. And then on the Craft Street side, likewise, it extends onto our abutting property. So I think once this is done, it'll look really uniform and aesthetically pleasing to have that feature in that one corner. So the building layout, as you can tell, is an improvement just even from the siting of the building. So we've pulled it away. At the closest corner, it's 11 feet, but however, at the farther side is beyond the 25-foot setback. So you can see here, this blue line, it gives you a good detail of, or reference point of where the 25-foot line is in terms of a single-family attached dwelling setback requirement. And so I think that centers, to the best we can, this oddly shaped lot, noting that we do have two frontages as well, so we are kind of confined within our building envelope. Proposed condition site plan. Again, this will be building number 1 with 2 units, building number 2 with one single unit. There's a shared driveway that comes on Central Avenue for my cursor here. 1-car garage for 1 unit here with an exterior parking and a mirror image on the other side. The unit that's on Craft Street has its own driveway, and there's an exterior parking space to the left of the garage. Here's a 2D elevation, a view from Craft Street, our neighbor. To the left here, this is of building number 1. We can come back to any of these if you'd like to see them again. View from Central. And then this would be view of building 1 if you were standing in the driveway looking at from building 2. And then likewise, this is a view of building 2 looking from building number 1. And this is looking from our neighbor on Central Avenue of our building. And then here's a view from our neighbors on Craft Street. So this is a landscape plan that's in your packet. One of the questions that was raised when we talked with Mark Welch when we created this curb cut was a street tree that's being relocated to this location here. We've already talked with him about the species that's appropriate. And so that's in the works. There are existing trees that we are preserving. So anything that's marked with an E, like this one, that's being preserved. And this one that's being preserved to the extent that we try to minimize. There's really not much there currently other than those trees that we pointed out. Otherwise, it's a pretty flat lot. You're talking about 1 foot, 2 foot across the board. So you really don't see it in any grade changes, significant grade changes. And I think it's important to note also that ever since last year when we went before the Historical Commission, which was very well attended, as you can imagine, by a lot of abutters, we have stayed in touch with our direct abutters primarily because the folks over here on Craft Street are most impacted. So we've stayed in touch with them. as well as our neighbor on the Central Avenue side. We've had our neighborhood meeting, of which Councilor Lucas was there via Zoom. And so we've received very good feedback in terms of the design and the layout of the buildings. Councilor Lucas had requested that we do a turning radius plan on the Craft Street side. One of the things that he did express to me as a concern from him, because he lives nearby, is that as cars come out on Central Avenue, he wanted to ensure that the sight lines didn't get impacted by the building. And as you can see, the building is set back pretty far from the property line and from the street. So the street lines will not be impacted by the building. Interior floor plans, these are in your packet and on these slides. I can come back to any one of these if you like, so I won't spend too much time on these at the moment. And then just closing it out with the renderings again of the buildings, the proposed buildings. And I will leave it there. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank
We
you.
probably will have questions for you. Let's hear from planning now.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Going to share my screen with a brief presentation. This is Katie Wewell from the Planning Department. We have petition 179-25. It's a special permit to construct 3 single-family attached dwellings in 2 separate buildings. The subject property consists of a parcel measuring 15,000 square feet in the multi-residence or MR1 zoning district. It's located at the corner of Central Ave and Craft Street and was previously improved with a single-family dwelling constructed circa 1884, also known as the Amos Judkins House. The site is currently vacant due to a 3-alarm fire in 2024, and a subsequent demolition permit was issued in October 2024 to raise the remaining structure. The area is predominantly residential in the immediate vicinity, with a mix of single and 2-family uses in addition to commercial uses southeast of the site on Craft Street and northeast of the site on Watertown Street. The immediate area of the site is also zoned multi-residence 1. The petitioner proposes to construct 3 single-family attached dwellings in 2 separate buildings. As designed, the project requires zoning relief around the site design, building design, and the use. So the use of single-family attached dwellings to reduce the required front and rear setbacks to exceed the maximum height, to allow parking within the side setback, and to allow a driveway within 10 feet of a lot line and parking within 20 feet of the side and rear lot lines. When reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed project as designed, whether it will not adversely affect the neighborhood, whether it will create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, whether access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and whether literal compliance with the those front and rear setback requirements and the height is impracticable, and whether the literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable. Some planning analysis. We believe that the requested use is compatible with nearby uses. It allows for 1 additional unit above what is allowed by right. The massing is broken up between 2 separate buildings to mitigate any additional building area. We noted many of the architectural features that kind of pointed to a thoughtful consideration of the design to mirror that 1884 Amos Judkins house. We also note that the height of that house was non-conforming at 39 feet, where 36 is the maximum allowed. So the requested exceedances of the height at 36.14 feet, 38.19 feet, they're not dissimilar from the prior building. The corner lot constrains the site with, creating a shallower lot. So makes it more challenging to locate the parking and the driveway outside of those required setback distances for single-family attached dwellings. So that concludes the planning presentation. We're happy to answer any questions or bring up any plans for the committee.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wewell. Before we take it into the committee, I'm asking if there are any members of the public, either in the chamber or online, who have comments, questions, anything you'd like to raise during this public hearing. Raise your hand virtually or wave at us. And if you are there or something comes up later, raise your hand and I'll try and call on you then. I don't see any public comment at this time. So we'll take it into the committee. Are there counselors who have questions or comments about this project? Counselor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I remember that fire very well because I live fairly close to this location as well. It was really a tragedy because it was a beautiful Queen Anne home. And I was looking forward to seeing it, totally redone. I do appreciate the architectural efforts here. I think it's very similar to the building that was there. And I think it's in a very attractive look, and I think it fits well into the neighborhood. I don't really have any concerns about it. I would like to maximize, greenery and reduce any impervious surfaces as much as possible. I am assuming this is an all-electric building. They usually are now. And I don't really have any other questions other than just that quick review. And I think it's a lovely design. Thank you.
So is that a statement, not a question about all electric?
Well, I saw somebody nodding when I said it's an all-electric building. So that answered my question. And then if I would like some discussion about how much impervious surfaces there will be. And if there's any way to reduce it and add pervious surfaces, stonework, that kind of thing. I also think that really adds, it's attractive to the building as well, rather than just a blacktop driveway.
Mr. Lee, would you like to address that, or is that a question for the architect?
I may have to defer to Mariana in terms of the pervious surfaces, materials on the driveways.
Yes, I see her eagerly here. Mariana, please go ahead and talk to
Hello,
that
good evening.
question.
Sorry, I haven't talked so far. So Mariana Dagati from MGD Plus Architects. Yes, if you just give me 1 second, this information typically is in the civil engineer's plans. So because I want to give you the right number, if you allow me just for a few minutes only, I will come back to you. I'm looking into that in the plans so I can give you the right information. Just 1 second only.
Sure, that's a question that comes up as you're here before us quite often, but we very frequently ask this question about how much is pervious, impervious. So don't be surprised when this comes your way in the future. You can have the numbers ready rather than have to dig it out of the civil engineer's report. Why don't we come back to you when you're ready and we'll take other comments in the meantime?
Madam Chair, one thing that may be helpful is that the open space that's being proposed is 54%. That lends to that area in at
Yeah, I
least the
think the
topic of
question is
discussion.
specifically around impervious versus pervious surfaces of
Understood.
pavement within that, but thank you.
You
Yes,
have that information now, Mrs. Chair, if you want
Yes.
me to.
sorry, please go ahead, Mariana.
Yes. So in terms of the proposed impervious areas, the total amount will be 7,293 square feet. Now, the proposed pervious areas, which actually is going to be very small and is rated only for the window wells. Now, in terms of the proposed proposed material for our driveways, we were just considering asphalt driveways. But if there's any suggestion from the committee that you would like us to take into consideration, we can always just make that, acknowledge that, and discuss that with our clients and make modifications as necessary.
Thank you, Mariana. Yes, I would love to see them made of pervious materials with maybe stonework on the side or something that would sort of reflect the architecture of the house would be lovely. But my concern is I always like to reduce any heat island effect, like black asphalt, but I also important for stormwater also, if we can keep more water on site. I know you have a robust stormwater plan with this project, but it would be very lovely if you would consider pervious surfaces for the driveways, because there's quite a lot of driveway there.
Yes, definitely, we will take that into consideration in the past on other projects. We also consider just to replace areas, for example, where the car is going to be parked in outdoor spaces, replacing the asphalt from those areas for a more pervious surface. I will look at that option and see how can we balance pervious and impervious surfaces in this project as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
If your client has access to this meeting or to you or Mr. Lee tonight, it might be helpful if you could get an answer to that if you're thinking you would like us to vote on this tonight. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I
Are
will
you
do that.
all set, Councilor Leary? Councilor Labovitz?
Yeah, I was going to mention the same thing as Councilor Leary. I'd strongly encourage you to make that change if possible. I'd like to vote on this tonight. I'm sure everybody else would like us to vote on this tonight. I do have a question. What is the structure, if there is one, between the two buildings? Is that a carport?
It's a porte cochere.
Porte cochere.
I'm sorry?
Porte cochere. It's listed in there. It's like a covered parking spot.
Okay.
Sort of like a pergola for a car.
But
Sort
you
of like a carport.
But you drive through it to get
Correct.
okay.
Yeah, it's a
Just one-
decorative feature that pays homage to the prior home, which had one.
Yeah,
So you drive under that.
thank you.
Sure thing.
Okay. Yes, I also want to commend the architectural features and if the changes that we suggested in terms of the asphalt could be made, I'm prepared to vote for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Labovitz. Councilor Lucas, then Councilor Block.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lee, I just want to also commend your client or the architectural firm on the design of the project. It tries to incorporate many of the features that were in the original home that was built in the 19th century. And as you know, in this neighborhood, this is very close to the Newtonville local historic district. And a lot of the, it's not in the district, but it's close to it. It probably should have been. Why, I don't know. That's a question for another day. But I like what your client did here. It certainly fits with the neighborhood. It is big, and you broke up the home in two different buildings. But all of the other homes in the neighborhood are also quite large. So a lot of those homes are from the 19th century and early 20th century. I also want to commend you and your client on improving the sidewalk there on the corner of Crafts and Central. You probably don't know this, but that particular intersection does retain a lot of water. So anything that you can do with that would be much appreciated. I also want to comment on the permeable surface for the driveways, especially for the one on Craft Street. I understand that there's going to be I think it's a stormwater system installed on site where there isn't one right now. That will certainly help out with the flooding, but anything else you can do with a permeable surface would be much appreciated. And I hope you and your client can commit to that tonight. And it's also I would say for this committee, it's a reoccurring theme that we want to see permeable surfaces especially in the driveway areas. That's what we want to see. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone. We would like to see that. So just in general, going forward, make sure you advise your clients on this when they're going through the design of the site. Other than that, I don't really have any other issues with this. I like what you did with the corner there, allowing the sight lines for cars traveling down Crafts and Central. They're able to see on the adjacent street. And it's a wonderful neighborhood. And I look forward to supporting this, but I just want you to commit to a more permeable surfaces on the site. That's all, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. I'm hoping and assuming there are some conversations going on between the architect, the attorney, and the client to answer that question before we come to voting. Councilor Block, you're next.
Chair. Well, I too am impressed with the architectural efforts that the petitioner has made. Nonetheless, there are some metrics here which I find a little disturbing. I'm looking at the planning department's memo, or maybe it's the zoning review memo, in which the by right height is 36 feet and the existing, I'm assuming that's the destroyed building, is 39 feet. And the proposal is for 36.1 and 38.2 feet. And I'd really like the petitioner to elaborate a little bit more on why the height above 36 feet is something that's important to them. Do you have any comments on that?
Do you have other questions you'd like to raise at the same time so we don't go back and forth, or is that your only question on this?
Well, there's a similar question about the number of stories, which is 3 instead of 2.5.
Yep.
The FAR is 0.55, by right is 0.48. There's a massing here which a number of different metrics reflect. That's my main interest.
I had a feeling, which is why I was dragging that out of you. While we ask Mariana to come back and address the question, I think it applies to all of those questions you have. Am I correct?
Yes.
Mariana, would you like to address Councilor Block's questions about why it was important to exceed the zoning requirements in terms of height and FAR and massing, and why you couldn't have met them while still being sort of design historically, architecturally appropriate?
Sure, of course. Well, regarding the first question, that actually both answers will be connected. The maximum height, why not lower the height of the building? Well, this is a very specific and particular architectural language, that the style of the building, the former building, that we wanted to I wouldn't say replicate, but we wanted to keep the continuation in our proposed design. And for that, you can see that the roofs in particular show, and the gables and all these elements from the roof, they show a very steep shape. So in order, if we lower the building height, which it would also require lowering other floors heights, and at that point we would have not exactly the kind of spaces that we wanted to create for these houses. So in order to preserve the style and the quality of the spaces for the previous building, we were forced to continue with that exceeding that height, exceeding the maximum, which was 36 feet. Because of that also is that we have to include in our FAR calculation the area that is in the top floor, which regularly, you know that when we calculate FAR according to the Newton zoning ordinance, if you meet formula regarding the ceiling heights in that floor level, you can exclude that from the FAR. So essentially, it was more part, I would say, a decision to keep within the design style that we wanted to move forward. I would also like to expand on the previous question, or essentially the request that the other councilors expressed regarding the pervious surface. And I had a quick conversation with our client, and he agrees that we can replace portions of our driveway and potentially, as I said, the areas where the car will be parked, so the parking spaces for pervious materials.
Thank you for checking on that. I have a few follow-up questions about that, but I've had a request from one of the counselors, and I think it would be appreciated by all of us if, I don't know, Mariana, if you have screen share ability, or certainly Ms. Wewell and Lawrence Lee do, to be showing the elevation of the roof lines and the pitch you're talking about for us to better understand. For instance, one of the differences was between 36 feet high, which is the maximum, versus 36.1 that you're proposing. And I do wonder whether that 0.1 is really
Not the point.
significant enough.
Okay. So I don't know if you want me to share or, thank you, Katie.
And you can use your cursor to point out what you're talking about and where and why.
So the building one height, if you can please just show us the building height. I'm sorry, Katie, is on is the building one height that I wanted to
Do you
show.
want me to go to the civil plans or?
I think these architecturals are still showing the maximum height of the building, sorry. The elevation that you were showing,
Oh, okay.
it was on the right side.
So I have the Central Ave and then the Craft
Yes, the
Street.
central
Okay, I can zoom in.
elevation, I think you can see, if you can just enlarge that so we can see the maximum height that we are showing is 38 feet 2 inches for building one. And the new building is the one that we try to stay within the maximum height. I think if you can just enlarge that as well so we can see it bigger.
So we can read
Yes,
the
it's at 36 2 inches, which I would say that regarding this, this is the I would say the second building, that as we call the main building and the second building. This one with the 36 2 inches is probably because there was a moment when we were adjusting the average grade for the building that probably has that made that increase. Honestly, I have to go back to our records. I think the 2 inches, if that is something that the commission would like us to adjust to stay within the maximum height, I'm pretty sure I can review that. Regarding the other building, is the one that I call building one, is that we have a higher building here, and this is the one that we were trying to preserve the language for the roofs and all that explanation that I made before.
Councilor Block, you did have some other sort of massing footage questions relating to this. I think she certainly just talked about the height, but did she hit everything you were asking about?
Madam Chair, if I may jump in too, I'd like to remind the committee that FAR does not apply to single-family attached dwellings, so there is no relief around FAR. There's no limit to FAR for single-family attached. It's a number that we ask for the applicant to provide, and we provide it to the committee, knowing that it's a number the committee sees often and are comfortable with. But I just like to remind everyone, there is no zoning relief for FAR. That metric does not apply to single-family attached dwellings.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell, for that reminder. That's really helpful for us to always keep in mind. My sense of question of Counselor Block's question was about comparing to what is existing and what was, not that this was a legal requirement we needed to follow, but I don't need to speak for Counselor Block. He can follow up with his questions. I have a few hands next. Do you want to finish, Counselor Block?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Wewell, for that reminder. And since you put it in that context, do you happen to have the FAR for the building that was destroyed by fire?
I don't have, I don't know if the
Well, we,
design team has it.
So we had limited information about the existing building that was after demolished. I remember that we have saved some information regarding the height of the building, but I can certainly go to my records and see if I can find the if we have ever been able to calculate the actual FAR of the building. I will take just 1 second to go through that.
sure, I'm not trying to give you additional homework assignment on the spot. That's not the point of my question. It's coming to grips with the attempt that you've made, a very admirable attempt to echo the architectural features of the building that was there before. But at the same time, of course, you're building 2 buildings and not 1. And that has just an impact on the presence on that lot. I just have to say, it isn't the 36.1 feet height that concerns me. It's much more the 38 feet plus. And I appreciate that you may need some flexibility because of the architectural features. I just want to note that for the record that that you're pushing some of these metrics pretty hard. Even the 54%, which Mr. Lee referenced. I'm not finding all my things here, but what was that, the open space percentage, with 50% being the required minimum, and the previous lot before the building was destroyed, I think, was around 70% open space. It's going to be quite different what you're doing. So having said that, maybe others have other questions about all of this. Those are my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Block. So yes, different, but in terms of both FAR and open space, allowable. But change happens, and there are positives and negatives to it. And I think that's what you're getting at. Next, we have Counselor Farrell and then Lucas again.
Thank you, Chair. I sometimes struggle also with these questions about the special permitting and why we're allowing excesses to the norms. But and I was concerned originally about the height of the larger building, and that's why I asked to see the drawings again. This special permit to me deserves all of our support. I think your design is fabulous. I think I believe the height is almost necessary in this design, in reflecting the way those buildings were built in that period. I compliment you on achieving what I think is a really wonderful building. And I do understand the nature of having 2 buildings, but I do think that they're well done, and I think there is a good amount of open space. But I thought about this a lot as my colleagues were speaking, but I think the height works in this session. And this is one opportunity where I would be willing to support a special permit to exceed that height limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Farrell. Attorney Lee, Lawrence Lee, I see your hand up. I have another comment from a committee member. Do you want to interject something right here?
No, I thank you, Chair, first of all. And I think Counselor Farrell kind of took a lot of the words that I was going to say. I was just going to really reinforce the fact that internally within our team, knowing having been before you many times, knowing what the questions will be raised and criteria and waivers that are going to be needed, this was done intentionally because of the architectural components. So Councilor Farrell really hit it right on the nail in terms of that is the height massing of that building was done very intentionally to really try to match what was there previously.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good concluding remarks, perhaps unnecessary. I think Mariana made those points too, as did Counselor Farrell, but thanks. Let's go now back to the committee. Counselor Lucas, you had your hand up again.
Yes, I want to say that most of the homes in this neighborhood are non-conforming. They're all old homes. They're all big homes. They're all oversized homes. This home again abuts a historic district where these homes were built in the 19th century and early 20th century. It is bigger than 36 feet, but it is less than what was there previously. And I'm okay with 36 feet and 38 feet at this location. And with that being said, I move to close the public hearing and move for approval.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. I'm just going to throw a few of my comments in because I think all of my colleagues have said most of them very well. I think the scale and style and character of this new design is very appropriate. I also appreciate it. I like what you're trying to do with the fence above the wall and the wall continuation, which also does preserve safety of sightline visibility around the corner. You're meeting the open space. I am ready to vote in favor of this also. The other thing I'd like to say, we don't often get into style because it's very subjective. However, we see here a lot of renovations and additions and new buildings that are, I would say, characterless, perhaps boxy, and this is not that kind of building. So I think it is kind of a joy for us to be able to see a plan like this come forward that is not yet another bland characterless box, and we really appreciate that. We do have one more comment before we. Oh, no, I'm done. Go ahead, Councillor Leary, again.
I just wanted to ask regarding the question about increasing the permeable surfaces. I heard portions, but I wanted a little more detail on if you can't do the whole driveway, what portions are you talking about? And I just also want to comment quickly on, I love that you're adding that black wrought iron fence. Is it going to be made of wrought iron or is it going to be made of another material?
We cannot commit on wrought iron, but it will be a metal material.
Okay. Okay, I think I always wondered why that looked funny that it didn't have a fence in between the brick. In this case, I don't have a problem with the height because you're trying to fit in with the prior house, I think, which was 39 feet. And I think my colleague, Councilor Lucas, had already commented on that. In this particular instance, I don't have a problem with that. But if you have more details about how you would, what portion of the driveways would be permeable, I would, of course, like more rather than less.
Backing that up, I think we need to know that before we approve it. Again, portions doesn't quite give us the full answer, nor did you mention what the materials were. Councilor Leary had suggested edging, which would be very appropriate. So do you have a sense of what that might be made out of and of materials and portions versus the driveways themselves so that we know what we're voting on and we can put it in the conditions?
Yes, I can answer to that question. So there's a landscape architect involved also in the design for this project that I would like to discuss with them more if the design and the intent that I have in mind now really works. But as I said previously, we used to replace the asphalt area in those in the parking spaces for permeable pavers. We used to do that in the past and it worked very well. We can also introduce an apron section with these permeable pavers and create along the driveway, in particular when it comes to the kind of carport area, the drive-through area. In those spaces, we can design with interrupting the driveway with areas of permeable pavers. I should probably, what I can commit is if the commission agrees, is that we will create this amendment to our drawings and submit it as soon as possible to you. But I believe that it will be almost 50% of the amount of asphalt that we are now showing, in particular in those areas that are not just driveways, that we can use permeable pavers. If that answers your question, this is what I can come up now during the meeting, but yes.
I think as long as we have an understanding, we often do this, it can be left open to the planning department's final approval. Did I just hear you say 50% of the driveway you might turn into pervious? Or did I misunderstand that?
This is, I mean, 50% of the driveway that I can introduce these pavers sections. It's the driveway as it's being designed is also because we try to preserve the existing curb cut on on the Craft Street is the new one. Let me just, the central, I don't have, I'm sorry, the drawings, if I have the ability to share, if someone can put the, Katie, if you can help me just showing the site plan maybe. That curb cut is existing and is shared with the property, just the abutters on the right side. So then what we tried to preserve was that existing curb cut, and the driveway then take this shape that it goes through between the buildings to the rear of the lot where we accommodated the cars. Taking into consideration that in the previous existing building, we didn't have the cars in the front of the lot. So we thought that it was a way to preserve what used to be part of the street view in this location. So then that made that driveway longer probably than necessary. Now, if we can replace a 50% of that or not, it's kind of difficult for me to say what the number is without doing a quick calculation. But I can say that, as you can see where the entrance of the curb cut, the driveway is at the curb cut location, we can replace a large portion there with a nice apron, then continue with asphalt up to the area where we have this cover space that we will go through that. We can replace those for permeable pavers. And then when it comes to close to the garages, we can replace all that back section for the parking spaces, as well as a decorative portion of that section of the driveways with permeable pavers. Same thing on Craft side. I think that the whole parking space area can be replaced by permeable pavers. And then we can create like a band, decorative band around that driveway parking section using permeable pavers. I don't know if that is sufficiently descriptive, but I picture in my head something that we can create that can be decorative as well as responding with the permeable request.
I'm going to let Councillor Leary respond partly to your answer, but for me, I don't understand why you want to keep any of it as asphalt. The curb cut, it doesn't matter what the material is. This entire driveway could all be permeable pavers with an edge treatment and an apron. I don't understand why you feel there's a need to have any of it be asphalt, but perhaps that's not what Councillor Leary's getting at. So would you like to have one more shot at that? And then we should really move on.
No, I was getting at that.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I think you expressed that very good, very well. That would be ideal. And what I'm thinking here is that perhaps we could have subject to second call, so we could see the design of the driveway and vote on it subject to second call at our next city council meeting.
Yeah, I just want us to have a clear understanding of what it is we're voting on. Lawrence Lee, we have another counselor's hand up. Are you trying to address that question specifically right now, or can I call on the other counselor first?
Yes, I would like to at least give you a definitive answer in terms
Okay.
of what my client can commit to. So
Thank you.
all the exterior parking spaces, he can commit to doing permeable pavers. And to the extent where, so that automatically increases what it currently is. And then to the extent where we can add any portions of the driveway, we can do so. But at the very minimum, we can commit to doing that for all the exterior parking spaces.
The parking spaces, but not the driveway itself.
Not at the moment, but if you're looking for a concrete answer tonight to vote on, we can certainly do that. And if it is at your leisure that you wish to put it on second call with an updated assessment, we can look to that as well. But I think the common goal of voting it out tonight with this minor detail to be flushed out, we will be happy to provide that.
Thank you. I do think it's to everyone's advantage for us to vote this out tonight. So
Yep.
continue to, I do not understand why, except for perhaps cost, why the entire driveway portions can't be permeable. Councillor Maliki.
Thank you. I just had a comment and question regarding the tree protection plan, which by, I don't know how to pronounce, Marquis Tree Service or Marquis or however they say it. It looks like a very good tree protection plan if it is followed, but I'm having trouble reconciling the tree save area that they want fenced off, the tree save areas that they want fenced off with the construction plans and the footprints, and because there's no, they show tree save areas for the, pre-existing condition, the old house, but not for the building plans. And I think there's going to be it's going to be very tight, and possibly it would be very easy for your construction people to want to excavate into the root zone, particularly of the beech tree, which, as I understand it, is a species that is more sensitive to root damage. And it would have been helpful to see how that's going to work. I noticed in the write-up, they emphasized, not having construction workers and or materials stored in the areas. To the, it's not clear how that's going to be enforced, because it seems like the possibility that people will be going inside the fences. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that. How often will your arborist be coming to look at the state of things? Because any damage that happens to these trees, which are very worth preserving, it could be 5 years from now when the homeowners of these units are stuck with the cost to remove the tree if damage is done.
Are you addressing that to anyone specifically, Councillor Maliki?
Yes, I don't know if a landscape person is here or Mr. Lawrence Lee.
I
Chair, if
don't,
I may,
your landscape architect is not on this call, is that correct?
that is correct.
So would you like to answer the question about the tree protection plan?
Yes, my client has been in touch with Mark Welch,
Mhm.
and he has reviewed the materials that have been presented. And one of the last questions that he raised was the relocation of the city street tree.
Mhm.
But otherwise, he did not express any other concerns. So I think the best I can say is that we will follow the tree ordinance like we are always required to.
And you'll follow the recommendations of the arborist.
Which arborist is that, Councilor Maliki?
From the Marquee Tree Service regarding how to protect the trees you intend to keep.
Right, so whatever we filed with the building, with the tree permit, tree protection plan, we will follow that.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
and, and Chair, I would like to add, since my client did commit to making the entire driveway permeable pavers, so he did authorize me to make that statement.
We appreciate that. And now this won't have to be on second call. So thank you. And thank you, client, for being so
I just-
responsive to pivoting on the spot. Sorry, Councillor Maliki, what, are you still speaking?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more comment, and what makes me uncomfortable about this, I mean, I think the new design is lovely. What makes me uncomfortable, it just seems like somebody, I don't know if it was your client or a previous owner, somebody benefited from the carelessness of leaving the rags that caused the fire that destroyed the original building. And I think that's,
I don't think that's relevant for us tonight, however, but I think we are all very sad about the fire in this building. Thank you. Are you all set, Councillor Maliki? I think we're
Yes.
finished with councillor comments. We have a motion before us to close the public hearing. Let's vote on that. We can do that on a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 That was unanimous. So the plans will be submitted with the revised driveway material. I don't think we need any special other conditions changed. Ms. Wewell, do you want to go through the findings and conditions?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I've also been listening pretty intently and trying to draft a condition as the information comes up. So I think I have something that reflects, typically what we see when that condition is added. So
Great,
this is the council order. The findings, we utilize that the site is an appropriate location for the project as designed, as the massing is broken up between the two buildings. The prior historic building on site was non-conforming in height, which lends itself to the relief. And the design mirrors a previous historic dwelling. Will not adversely affect the neighborhood, as one of the dwellings mirrors the design of the previous building, and the massing is broken out between two buildings while allowing for a gentle increase in density of an additional unit allowed above what is by right. Will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Literal compliance with the parking regulations is impracticable due to the shape and the depth of the lot as a corner lot, subjecting the project and its parking to 2 front setbacks, also limiting the area for driveways and parking due to the shape of the site. Literal compliance with the front and rear setbacks and the building height is impractical due to the shape and depth of the lot as a corner lot, creating a shallower lot to locate the proposed buildings. The height remains below the height of the prior historic building, which the proposed project mirrors and incorporates architectural features from that house into its design. And then moving along to the conditions, we have the standard plan referencing condition in condition 1. So the site plan, architectural plans, landscape plan. You'll see highlighted is the condition based on what I heard tonight. So the petitioner shall incorporate permeable materials for all surface parking spaces and in the construction of the proposed driveways. So sort of editing as I went there, but when Mr. Lee confirmed the driveways, I was able to make it a little bit cleaner. So that should handle not needing any new plans before this goes to council if this were to be approved. We have a standard O&M plan from engineering, standard pest and rodent condition, standard construction management plan condition, construction hours, standard building permit with the requirements that need to be submitted with that building permit application, and then the standard CO condition, and then some the condition on maintaining the landscaping that is referenced in the landscaping plan, and then also allowing the commissioner to issue temp COs, and that's also a standard condition. And that concludes the conditions and findings.
Thank you so much, and you did a great job incorporating that permeable sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a motion to approve before us. No other hands up. Let's take a roll call vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much. Good luck. We look forward to seeing that project. But we're not done with you, Mr. Lee. I believe you're going to be presenting the next item, which is number 177-25, a request to allow 3 single-family attached dwellings. We have all of our projects tonight are that, with parking relief and a combination of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height at 790 Watertown Street.
Thank you, Chair, again, and good evening once again for everyone. With your permission, I would like to share my screen, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're now in a different part of town. We're in Ward 3 on Watertown Street. This project is likewise a single-family attached dwelling petition. And this part of the property, is very different from the one that you just saw. So I'm going to take you and give you a little bit of a tour, and then we'll go into the details. So we're right at the intersection of Eddy and Watertown Street. One of the unique differences between this property and the one that we just saw is that we do have a conservation area. So the Cheesecake Brook is right on Albemarle Road, as you all know, and that a lot of our property is actually within the 200-foot riverfront area. So I'll get into that in a little bit. Likewise, we are in an MR1 zoning district. This is one of the larger lots in the area, as you can see just from our direct abutters that are all 2-family homes. They're on smaller lots with 2 units apiece. So this piece right here is almost like a mirror image of our land with 4 units in total, just by way of comparison, relativity of size and scale. This is taken from the GIS. It's I thought it was an easy illustration to show in terms of the grading that we have to contend with. So up here in Watertown Street, we're at a higher elevation. So as you go from Watertown down Eddy Street, the slope increases in terms of it sloping downwards. So it's about 6-7 feet or greater as you go towards the back of the property. So that's something that we have to contend with in this instance, because in terms of the grading and the siting of the house, as well as what is exposed foundation-wise, that is something that we have to contend with here. The other restriction, alongside with the fact that this is also a corner lot that has 2 front setbacks, is the fact that this blue line represents the 200-foot riverfront area. So starting from this approximately this location, going 200 feet, what we have obtained is an order of conditions. So prior to us coming before you, this project has actually been vetted by conservation. So public hearings have been held for that. Order of conditions was issued for the project. It also was vetted by the Newton Historical Commission. So they've looked at the plans, they have waived the demolition delay, approving the design of the house. Okay. This is a view of the existing house standing on Eddy Street. One of the things I do want to highlight is that this oak tree, among several others, so there's a tree here, this oak tree will be preserved. One of the ideas was, or one of the things that we had to contend with was to try to save as many trees as possible. There is actually a curb cut that is not in active use, but it's there. This location where my cursor is part of the conservation restriction area that's going to be heavily landscaped based on a landscape planting plan that's been approved by the Conservation Commission. Another thing I wanted to note here as well is how poor the condition of the sidewalk is, and there actually is no curbing. So as part of the project, we will have to replace the entirety of this sidewalk. At some points, even Watertown Street, I know Watertown Street had just been redone, but certainly in this section of Eddy Street, safety purposes, aesthetics, and in terms of city improvements, that's all going to be made as part of this project. So going to the site conditions, we have about 14,000 square feet of land, MR1 zoning district. I mentioned that this is in a 200-foot riverfront area. Conservation has reviewed and issued an order of conditions, and the demolition has been waived. The delay has been waived. The project otherwise meets lot coverage, height, open space requirements. Here's a rendering of the project of the proposed house. So here we're standing at the corner of Eddy Street and Watertown Street, looking at the front. This is the front facade, and this tree over here is going to be preserved as well too. I just wanted to illustrate that. As we're heading down Eddy, one of the things I want to highlight is the interpretation of the retaining wall ordinance. You'll see that that's one of the waivers that's being required. And this is not one of those situations where you have a series of walls, let's say, in front of you running horizontally. Here we have what is very typical of a garage, slightly under, and they take the highest points and the lowest points between these two retaining walls. So the ordinance that was recently amended, what they would do is that because they're within 25 feet of one another, they take the highest point of one end and then the lowest point on another. And if that's greater than 4 feet, even though if the wall is under 4 feet, that will trigger the 4-foot rule. So hence, this is not one of those situations where I wanted to make sure we all understand that it's not sort of these series of walls that you would see that triggers a relief. It's really just at the end as we approach the house, that's what triggers that 4-foot retaining wall requirement. Here's the view of from Eddy Street side at the back of the property. Again, as the street and the property slopes downwards, more of the house is exposed, just like what it is currently. So at the front of the property now on Watertown Street, it'll be looked at as a 2.5 story tall building. As it currently is with the existing house, once you get to the back, when it slopes downwards, you see more of the house. Hence the 3-story component that you see on the waivers. Here is another view of it from the backyard. Where my cursor is will be where Watertown Street is, and on this left side is where Eddy Street is. I can come back to any one of these if you like. So this plan illustrates the borders and boundary lines, if you will, of the conservation, mitigation, plantings, and then some of the landscapes that we're going to be doing, and the house itself, the building envelope, and the driveways. So one thing to note, a few things to note. So the trees that we wanted to try to be mindful about is this tree right here, where my cursor is, this large oak that we pointed out previously, and then these two trees in the back. One thing you'll notice also is the house is very centrally located. So kind of piggybacking off of what we just heard in the previous petition, once you get into the MR and the single family attached dwellings, the FAR component is not a requirement, and it's not a metric that is a factor. And the reason for that is because they have a higher, in a single family attached dwellings, they have a higher setback requirement. So it squeezes the building towards the middle of the site so as to reduce the impact of our abutters, for example, to our left, and also to the rear in this instance. As compared, 25-foot setback requirement versus 7.5 feet or 10 feet between old lot and new lot in an MR1 zoning district, or 15 feet in the rear. This is one of the reasons why. The other component is the lot coverage. So the building coverage is 5% lower than a by right building coverage. So what you see here is actually going to be a smaller building envelope than what you would be otherwise in a by right situation. So I wanted to kind of point that out, and I think this may be a good illustration of how that impacts a single family attached dwelling petition versus a by right petition. It's a little too small to read, but this is all in your packet. This is the order of conditions with the planting list. But it just goes to show this is the rear of the property that shows the heavily planted area that's already been approved by the Conservation Commission. A landscape plan. That's also in your packet. This gives a little bit more detail. There'll be some trees right along the front, privacy trees that are going to be planted alongside. We have been in communications with our neighbors. We had a neighborhood meeting. Just as of today, we were a direct abutter who we have been in touch with reached out to us with a rather late request, which we are going to honor. So this next slide shows this request that we received just today from our abutter to the left. I believe he and his wife sent an email of support of this petition to the city council earlier today. But his request was to ask us to shave off this red portion of the patio. So we're going to cut this back, and there will be some adjustments that are needed because there is a very short retaining wall that runs along the edge here. But the idea is that we will be shaving this off, and we'll make some minor adjustments in this area that will be no bigger than what it is square footage wise that is today. But we will pull it away from his property line, which is what he requested us to do. Here's an existing condition site plan. One of the things that I think our neighbors appreciated was the fact that there's this existing garage that's really close to the property line. That's going to go away. The other thing also is that that will free up some space, open it up. There'll be a 25-foot buffer between his property, our shared property line, to the new house. So there will not be a building here that will be obstructive to them. This is a proposed condition site plan. We can come back to this if you like, if you need any additional information. And these are floor plans as well. And again, we can come back to any one of these. There's a cross section of the house. As you can see, the higher elevation, and from the front, which is the Watertown Street side, to the back, which is the Eddy Street side of the property. This is somewhat relevant in terms of how and why also FAR doesn't count or shouldn't be a factor in these types of petitions because the mathematical formula actually is different. So for example, when you changed the structure use, let's say even if the structure is as is, and you use it as a two-family house, the basement is counted at the midpoint of the average grades. It compares it with the average grade. If the midpoint is below the average grade, then the basement doesn't count towards FAR. The moment we change that use from a two-family to, say, for example, a three-family use, the mathematical formula changes from a midpoint to a 2/3 requirement, such that if the average grade is lower than a 2/3, then it counts. So in this instance, as an example, that's one of the reasons why this is being viewed as a 3-story building, because partly because of the grade. That's the natural grade that's from Watertown Street to the back of the house. And also, if you're looking at FAR numbers, it's really not comparing apples to apples, just because the entirety of that basement floor actually is looked at as a first floor. Even when you're standing here on Watertown Street, where my cursor is, this basement is seen as a first floor from a zoning perspective, when in fact the front door is really on this level where my cursor is. Cross-section of the existing and proposed house. Again, any type of changes is really confined to the house itself. And again, in terms of the retaining walls, one of the reasons why also we did it this way was to preserve the grading such that the tree that's located here where my cursor is least impacted in terms of its roots and the soils. So we want to try to keep that undisturbed as much as we can at that location. These are the 2-dimensional elevations. We can come back to any one of these if you like. But to my point earlier, if you're standing on Watertown Street, this would really be looked at as a 2.5-story building. And then obviously as the grade opens up down at the bottom, you see more of the structure. We have a turning radius plan that shows how the spaces will work. One of the things that's pointed out is the pavement on Watertown Street side. So the existing driveway is really where my cursor is. And this additional pavement actually acts as a way to allow for cars to turn around within the property before they pull out. We know this intersection of Eddy Street is, sometimes it gets a little bit busy. And so for safety purposes, it actually is good for the folks to be able to turn around here before they pull out onto Watertown Street. So whereas compared to currently, that doesn't happen because we have you may recall there's a garage here and then the cars have to back out onto Watertown Street. So I can come back to any of these plans if you'd like to see them again. But that just shows pretty much every space, how it works, coming in and out of the spaces. And then we'll end on the rendering of the house again. Be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. It was very thorough. Let's see what planning has to add.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is special permit 155-25. It's a request to raise the existing dwelling and construct 3 single-family attached dwellings in one building. So 790 Watertown is located in the Multi-Residence 1 zoning district. The site is located between both the West Newton commuter rail station and the Newtonville commuter rail station. The immediate area consists of Multi-Residence 1 zoning, Single Residence 3, and Multi-Residence 3 to the south along Washington Street. And nearby uses include predominantly single and 2-family uses. The petitioner proposes to raise the existing single-family dwelling to construct 3 single-family attached dwellings in one building. The proposed building is located in the center of the lot with vehicular access from both Watertown Street and Eddy Street. As designed, the project requires relief to reduce both of the required front setbacks from Watertown Street and Eddy Street. It also requires relief for the use to allow a reduced required lot area, to allow 3 stories, to allow a driveway within 10 feet of a lot line and parking within 20 feet of a lot line, and to allow a combination of retaining walls exceeding 4 feet in height. And those retaining walls measure 4.8 feet, so only slightly over that 4 feet. When reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for this project as designed, whether it will adversely affect the neighborhood, whether there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by this project, whether access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, whether literal compliance with the city's parking regulations is impracticable, whether literal compliance with the required lot area and front setback requirements is impracticable. And then on this next slide, I have the standard retaining wall criteria due to that 4.8 foot retaining wall. Attorney Lee, do you have a question for me? Oh, no.
I apologize. I do want to just add one thing if the
Sorry.
chair allows me after you finish. So my
Okay.
apologies, Ms. Wewell.
No worries.
Thank you.
Just some analysis. The use of single-family attached dwellings is appropriate for the site and neighborhood despite that reduced lot area. The lot is one of the larger lots in the neighborhood, and surrounding it are smaller lots along Albemarle Road where 2 units are sited. So with this larger lot, we thought 3 is appropriate as proposed. Planning notes that this project will result in a larger building type than is typical in the neighborhood. However, it wouldn't be completely out of context as there are larger homes on compact lots further west along Watertown Street. We also noted that the frontage along Watertown Street features an excessive amount of paving. So in addition to the building area, this further reduces the open space to 53.3%, where 50% is the minimum required. We know that when designing a site, there are constraints and difficulty to balance, maneuverability, the parking requirements while trying to reduce paving. However, we do encourage the petitioner to reduce paving where possible. That concludes the planning presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wewell. Before we move on, and I would, of course, if there's something important that the petitioner needs to squeeze in here, we would like to hear it. But I prefer these meetings not to go as back and forth conversations. But first, let me just while I have you, Ms. Wewell, I think I may have misheard you at the very beginning when you stated the docket number you thought this project was. Could you say again what you thought this docket number was?
I have 15525. I can triple.
Believe it's 177.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Probably a holdover from a template.
Okay, I just want you to know when things get important that we're all talking about the same docket item. And I did check with the clerk. I think we can safely say this is 177-25. Okay, Mr. Lee, do you need to say something right now?
Yes, Madam Chair. 2 just very quick things. I do want to just note, and I neglected to point that out. In terms of the setback requirement, the proposed transform because of the electrification ordinance. Sometimes we run into this, and I think this was noted in the planning memo as well. So I do want to point that out. ISD views this as a structure which has to meet setback requirements. Hence, we've always been encouraged now to add a proposed location. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the utility company who has to decide, but wherever it ends up, we think it may be around here. If we can find a less visible location, we will certainly try to do that. And if the utility companies decide that we have to put it in a prominent location like this, we will add some screening around it as allowed. And then also in terms of the pavement, the permeable materials will also be used in this project.
We didn't even have to ask you. You offered.
I think my folks listened to the last one and they just jumped at it. So they wanted to make sure, save us some
Yeah.
time on that end. Thank you.
The ability to listen and pivot is so important. Thank you very much. Let's see if there are any members of the public who have questions or comments about this. I know that I was at your neighborhood meeting and there were lots of comments at that time, and we have at least received one letter, but is there anyone else? I don't see anyone in the chamber. Anyone online who would like to speak to this petition? Danielle. Go ahead.
Hi there. My name's Danielle Alvesback. I'm a community member. I live across the street, actually, at 10 Elliott Ave, kitty corner to the proposed project. And I think our primary concern with any new project, especially at this intersection, is the safety of the intersection. It's an intersection that has had a lot of accidents over the last 10, 15 years, including in the last 5 years, 2 accidents where cars actually came through our fence and into our lawn. So, and also there's been at least 1, maybe 2, where there have been accidents that landed in the lawn of this house. And so my main concern is that this project may affect the safety of the intersection via the 2 separate driveways. And the intersection's already quite unsafe, which the city is aware of and working on. But despite improvements in the intersection, there continue to be accidents and there continue to be cars that end up in the lawns of different properties facing this intersection. So we're hoping to think about how to make this a safe project. And if any, safety improvements can be built into the project itself. For example, we've been trying for a couple of years to see if we can get bollards installed at the intersection to protect pedestrians. Because many of the accidents involve cars that actually cross over the sidewalk. And in one occasion did hit a pedestrian, although on other occasions so far have not caused serious bodily harm. So that would be my main question, is how are we going to improve safety at the intersection? And is there a possibility to install bollards at the intersection to offset the added traffic and the added difficulty to the maneuverability of this intersection with the 2 driveways facing it?
Thank you very much. You're very right. I'm one of the at-large counselors from this ward, and I'm very aware of the accidents that happen at this corner. And I'm sorry so many of those cars have ended up on your yard and through your fence. So we will talk a little more about that, I believe. Anyone else from the public? No, if not, we will take it into the committee. While the public comment period is open, you are all welcome to submit emails to us too. We have Councilor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Let me say these comments come with all due respect for the developer and architects and all the people involved, but this is a project that makes me try to understand what special permits are all about. I find this to be an extraordinarily handsome building. I'm very disappointed at the prospect of its loss. I really wish a developer would come and say, how do I make this a 2-family? I did hear Mr. Lee talk about some of the issues on that, but we're not moving around the edges with this project. We're clearing a lot and building something totally new. And that's the issue that I struggle with in terms of special permits. In addition to that, we're going to lose a very large oak tree that you are not going to be able to preserve. But more importantly about the architecture, unlike the prior project, I don't see any reference at all, either to this existing structure or to the neighborhood in this project. Be that as may, my primary concern is just a special project that eliminates the building entirely and puts up something entirely new. And maybe as a new member of this, I need to understand better what we're trying to do here. But thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Other comments from Land Use Committee members? Councillor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I kind of see where Councillor Farrell is coming from. And this is a dangerous intersection, as you said earlier. I know there have been multiple crashes going through people's yards and homes. And now we're adding a second curb cut to the site, which makes it even more dangerous. And this intersection is one of those sneaky, underrated, dangerous intersections in Newton, which the neighbors here on this call are fully aware of. My comments related to the actual structure that is in front of us is that I think it is way too big. And I understand, Mr. Lee, that, you know, FAR does not apply. I get it, but your FAR is 0.71 and the by right FAR is 0.48. So like with any special permit, I always like to look at what is the by right alternative, and that's a two-family home, which would be significantly smaller, and the lot coverage would be greater. The setbacks would be smaller. I understand. But this project that is in front of us, I think, is way too big for the neighborhood based upon the renderings that I've seen and the dimensions of the structure. So, you know, I am not there yet with this particular project. And, you know, it's that second curb cut is the issue. And I've said this to you before, and I'll say it again. Your lot coverage is 24.9, where the max is 25. Your client is really pushing it with this one. So I am not there yet for this particular project. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. I don't recall anyone referring to the Historic Commission's report. Did I miss that?
Attorney Lawrence Lee said they have already been to Historic and the Conservation Commission before coming to us.
Sure.
And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Lee, the Newton Historical Commission did not preferably preserve this structure, or they voted not to preferably preserve it? A few double negatives in there. Is that correct?
I believe they voted to preferably preserve, but that they had waived the demolition delay based on the design that they reviewed.
Perfect, thank you.
Well, I'm looking at the Historic Commission's report, and they did move to preferably preserve this. It was a unanimous vote. I don't see the waiver of the demolition delay. What I see is the time for the demolition delay has lapsed, and hence it's no longer applicable. Am I misreading this?
I can answer that,
Thank you.
Chair,
Go
if
ahead.
that's. So no, this is the waiver is actually part of the planning memo, Councillor Block. So you'll see that I believe that's located right prior to the engineering memo. And I did have a conversation with the law department. They did confirm that the waiver is valid. So this is, and they unanimously approved the waiver. So as you can see, the vote in the affirmative, no one voted in the negative as it relates to the design of the home. And oftentimes I've been in front of the Historic Commission many times. Part of their review along with design is massing, scaling, in terms of neighborhood. And as you all may know, the purpose of the demolition delay is to encourage going back to the commission for their input. And so I think it does put some weight on the fact that they did approve the design unanimously, and that we, this went through that process, the design review process.
Well, thank you for that articulation. This current structure strikes me as historically important. So I appreciate the Historic Commission's initial determination. I appreciate its flexibility on the demolition delay. This building has a real presence that's consistent with other structures, other nearby structures. So I share the concerns that Councillor Lucas and Councillor Farrell have already raised. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Other comments from Land Use Committee members? Councillor Leary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am, listening to the comments of my colleagues here, and I can't really disagree with them. I do think this is a lot of massing squeezed in here. I know it's in some ways similar to our prior in terms of the 3 units replacing what was a much larger house. I was looking at the beautiful 1911 colonial that they're going to knock down, and that seems to really bother me here. And the other project, there was nothing there. It had burnt to the ground, and there was a lot of effort to mimic the existing building. And what I see here is just something that is sort of forced on the neighborhood. That's what it looks like to me. I just can't, I can't imagine it there. And I also, see these porches that look like they're lit up. And I was wondering about that, like there's going to be lights, going into their neighbors' yards on each edge. And I'd like a little clarification on that. There's so much impervious surface here as well, which is another thing that I'm not very happy about. So those are my comments right now.
Thank you, Councillor Leary. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet? Including virtual city councilors? If not, right now, we'll go back to Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps Attorney Lee can help me, but my understanding of the demolition delay ordinance is to give people a chance to reconsider whether they will knock a building down and maybe think about preserving it. And I think that can get waived earlier than 1 year when the applicant returns with a plan that the Historic Commission then says, okay, this is satisfactory. But I think the intention is, and I'd like to be educated on this, I think the intention is to encourage people to reconsider tearing down those structures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Your understanding is mostly my understanding, and I know that City Attorney Andrew Lee knows this very well too, because we worked for 2 years on this ordinance about historic preservation and landmarking and the demolition delay. It's not just to preserve the house, but it's to give them time to come back, even with, as they've done in this case, a whole new design. I think the intention is for them to think about keeping all or portions, at least, of the exterior of the home. I'm impressed and surprised, actually, that it was a unanimous decision of the Historic Commission to approve this design. but it was. And I appreciate that this petitioner has been both before the Conservation Commission and the Historic Commission before coming to us, and that usually helps us, gives us guidance from the bodies that have the expertise that we look to for guidance. I will say particularly, you're very lucky that you have a terrific plant list, thanks to the Conservation Commission. I very much appreciated all the plants that you're going to be putting on this site. So that's an advantage that you had by having to go to the Conservation Commission. Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I'm going to leave an opening here for Attorney Lawrence Lee because there are 7 of us here tonight, and I'm hearing 4 pretty strong negative opinions of this. Councillor Lobovitz, go ahead. Oh, and here's a 5th. So you know that that's not going to be a good vote. So would you like to, Mr. Lawrence Lee, would you like to confer with your client, Mr. Goldberg, and make a suggestion to us for how you'd like to proceed tonight?
Well, yes, I would like to make a comment if that's okay. I don't want to belabor the point, but I do understand from a design perspective, it's rather subjective, and I think the chair may have pointed that out in the previous petition. So the project that's before you has gone through, as you say, Chair, the reviews and approvals by the experts of those committees appointed to do that particular task. To sort of piggyback off of Councillor Farrell's common question, the encouragement to reconsider, yes, that's part of the spirit of the law, but it also gives the chance for the commission to weigh in on and participate in the design of the project. So here, again, I've been through this Historic Commission many times, and when the chair pointed out that, wow, this is actually a unanimous vote, there are certain members in the commission that take very good care, particular care, who are architects, and when they look at petitions that have new designs, they always compare it with the neighborhood context. I know for this particular area, there are varieties of different architecture. So there's not a singular type of design. And I do know that they do look at massing and scaling in comparison with the neighborhood. So the project, and this is a project that's also been vetted, so to speak, with the neighborhood. We have had that one comment regarding safety, which exists with or without this project being built, right? That's a pre-existing condition. And so, and we also have a neighbor, the direct abutter, who wrote in support of the project. So I think we shouldn't discount all of the efforts that have been made that brought us to this point. We didn't come unprepared, or the project has not been vetted by those that are charged to look at certain things in the project. So the waivers that were being asked are all reasonable given the grading and the site conditions. One thing I do want to point out again on the FAR topic is, by way of trying to compare by right versus a special permit single-family attached dwelling being the mathematical formula changing, even if you have the same exact building, if this was a 2-family house, the basement is no longer a first floor. It actually is a basement. So just from the fact that it changes its use, it's now no longer the first floor. So the
Mr.
point
Lee,
of...
I'm just going to interrupt you. I feel like you're trying your case again, and I think we did hear you, and I don't want to underestimate the the abilities of this committee to make their own inferences. I'm looking at 5 members of this committee in front of me, and the vote would be a negative one tonight, is my guess. I don't think that is any advantage to you or your client. It's already been indicated to me that one of the members would like a motion to hold, so I was trying to give you the chance to make a suggestion about what you think might be another way out. Otherwise, I think we will probably hold this tonight. I don't believe this would be passed tonight. I'm looking at people nodding their heads at me. And I don't think you need to repeat again all the positives that I think we did all hear. I think we understand the process. I think we understand the effort. It was not convincing to the majority of this committee tonight. Before we move forward, I see Councillor Farrell would like to speak another time. Councillor Farrell.
Chair, reconsider my comments, but I appreciate what Councilor Lee has talked about, that it's been through a process with other agencies and that they have certain, let me just say, carefully alleged professional experience. I think this body has some pretty strong professional experience also, in particular with what its duty is to the citizens of the city. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Councillor Lobovitz, you wanted to say something too?
Yeah, could we look at the wording of how the criterion for how it affects the neighborhood or how it fits into the neighborhood again?
From Ms. Wewell?
Yes, please.
Ms. Wewell, can you pull that up for us to take a look at on the screen again?
So on this slide, you'll see the 4 standard special permit criteria. So appropriate location, will not adversely affect the neighborhood. Sorry, my screen, the images are covering. There will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by the proposed single-family attached, that should say dwellings, as designed. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And then these 2 criteria, they're the same, but one is with the parking. So the waivers or requested relief around the parking is impracticable due to these reasons set forth in the ordinance. And then this is specific to single family attached dwellings. So the lot area, the reduced lot area and front setbacks. And then on the next slide.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm focused on the first one, actually. Appropriate location for I mean, that is one of the vaguest criteria I could ever imagine. And, you know, I think with all due respect to the Historic Commission, I think because of its vagueness, I think there can be legitimate differences of opinion as to whether the design, the massing, all of that is an appropriate location. So I just, what I'm trying to point out is, with all due respect, there can be a legitimate difference of opinion in terms of how to interpret that. I don't think that's strictly a professional issue. I don't think you have to be a professional architect or planner necessarily to be able to judge that criterion as to whether it's appropriate for the proposed project or not. And I think what you're seeing tonight with the 5 people who have reservations is exactly related to, I would say, the first one. Now, others can weigh in on that, but I just wanted to make that clarification that we can have great respect for others in their professional capacity and their legal capacity, I would say, within the city for their opinions, but it doesn't mean that that we can't legitimately disagree. And I think that's where we're finding ourselves tonight. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked for those criteria to be put back up, because for me, I was focused on some of the lower bullets about the safety for pedestrians and vehicles. And that was the point, I believe, that the neighbor on Elliott Street, Danielle, raised. And if it was going further tonight, and if it goes further another time when it comes back to us, because I'm not going to be, I don't believe we're going to be voting this down tonight. I think we could talk about, when you do the sidewalks and the curbing over, could you install bollards on the corner? I think trying to protect the safety, particularly of pedestrians, is an important thing we could discuss, but we're not there yet tonight. Councillor Block, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. If Ms. Mewell could put those criteria back up, and I really appreciate the comment you were just making, because I was going to go right to that criterion, the safety. I think it was the third one or the fourth one.
Second and third were the ones I was focusing on too.
Right, right. Well, the second is also fairly vague. The third, talking about no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians created by this design. I think the neighbor was pretty eloquent about the traffic conditions at this particular intersection. I know this intersection. It is a very popular intersection, and its crash history is well documented. Attorney Lee is correct in one sense. This is a pre-existing condition. That begs the question about whether this proposed design would add to the hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. And I think on its face, a second curb cut, as Councillor Lucas pointed out, it is just by necessity going to increase activity and therefore increase the nature of the hazard. I want to also say that I was struck by Councillor Leary's comment that this appears to be imposed on the neighborhood. That's a very strong way of phrasing it, and it resonated with me. So I agree with you, Madam Chair. I don't think there are the votes tonight to pass this, and I think holding it would be a really good idea. Thank you.
We have somebody ready to make that motion. Councillor Leary, last comment, because I'd like us to move on. Councillor Downs. Councillor Downs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question. If this were not a three-family building, would we be here at all? And what would be the by right option, please?
Chair, if I may answer that question?
Yes, I was going to say, Mr. Lee.
Okay, thank you. So we are planning, or I shouldn't say that. The by right option is a two-family house. And one of the things I do want to point out is the curb cuts that are being presented works for a two-family or three-family house. So what you see pretty much in terms of layout and siting, and that's really the point that I was trying to emphasize, is that whether it's by right or three-family, what you see is pretty much what you will, other than the fact that it's a two. So in terms of concerns related to traffic safety, curb cuts, things like that, pretty much very similar to what you see tonight.
Thank you.
Of course, true, Mr. Lee. Let me just say something here, Councillor Downs. I believe I heard at the neighborhood meeting that in fact, both these curb cuts currently exist. However, the driveway, which is more like a patch of dirt on Eddy, is not being used or utilized very much. So it's not necessarily two new curb cuts, but the difference of how often they're used is different between a two-family or a three-family. There are more vehicles that will be going in and out of one or both of those driveways. So the curb cuts might be the same, whether it's a by right two-family or not, or if it's a by right two-family, maybe the driveway will just be on Watertown Street and not on Eddy. These are all site planning considerations that now you and your client have the opportunity to think about, because I think we're about to have a motion on the floor.
But I think also your safety concerns on Eddy Street, you know, whether you have 3 trips a day or 2 trips a day, you really can't move that to further from the intersection because of the buffering that conservation has asked you to do. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. Counselor Maliki, do you need to say something right now? Or can we be done with this for the night? Because it's after 9 and we have a whole nother petition before us. If you're going to talk about that tree, I think we have time to do that when this comes back to us.
I just wanted to, well, make one point that nobody's talked about. It's in the memo that the project as planned would include sump pumps for each unit that were intended to go out on the ground, and that's not permitted. So kind of that says to me that there's too much impervious area, too much excavation, and that water would have to be, since it would have to be directed into the containment system, the adequacy of the containment system would not need to be reevaluated. I think there is a difference between the by right 2 unit and the 3 units being proposed, in that 3 units has them trying to find driveways and pavement and turning areas for 6 cars instead of 4 cars. So that's contributing to the excess payment that has been noted. And it also kind of, if you're worried about pedestrian safety, as I have been and the neighbors have been, it's adding not just more cars, but, you know, depending on versus current versus 2-family, you're adding 1 or 2 more families of people to be exposed to this hazardous intersection if they do any walking at all in the neighborhood. So I think there's and also I've seen Historical Commission approve waivers for things that were even less related to the building being lost than this one is. So I'm not really surprised that they approved the waiver, unfortunately.
Sorry, I assumed you were going to talk about the tree they're taking down in the driveway on Eddy Street. But if this comes back to us, we can talk about that at another time, because that's something I would actually talk about another time. Okay, I think we're done with city council comments. No, we're not. Councilor Leary?
Madam Chair, I just thought it would be a good idea. I think that the petitioner is getting some guidance or comments and that have been helpful so far that we've heard of. And I don't necessarily, I mean, I don't have a problem so much with the 3 units, because I think it would come back with 2 much larger units. And I do prefer that we have some influence on this project as a special permit rather than a by right project. But I would like to see the massing reduced. I would like to see the impervious surfaces reduced. I would like to see that tree saved on the corner as well, if possible.
They are saving the tree on the corner. It's the one
Eddy.
in the driveway.
Sorry, the one on Eddy Street.
The one on the corner of Eddy and Watertown is being saved. There's one in the new driveway off Eddy that's being removed.
Okay.
That's the one I was
That's the one I'm thinking
talking
of.
about. Yeah, okay, me too.
Okay, so, and I understand this can be a very busy area as well. I'm not sure that additional 2 cars would contribute to that. It's more where they're coming out of. And I don't know if they need those two curb cuts, or but my 2 things are more about the massing, reducing the impervious surfaces. And then I'm happy to make a motion to hold.
I think Councilor Lucas has already had his
okay.
hand up for that. And,
Okay.
It's close. Well, you're both close to this ward. Lawrence Lee, is there any other direction or input that you would like to hear before we take a vote on this tonight?
No, I think we heard you loud and clear. So on this one, so appreciate the comments. So thank you for that.
And on the safety thing, you did point out that the driveway off Watertown is redesigned to be safer with the cars being able to turn around in the driveway and front out. So I don't want us to ignore that you and your clients and your designers were trying to think about how to make this safer. Councillor Lucas,
Thank you. I move to keep the public hearing open and move hold.
let's do a voice vote. Roll call, sorry.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. The item is held 7-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know that that is not the result that you and your client were hoping for, but I think we will see you again. Our final item for the night is yet another corner lot, 3 units attached. This is item number 478-24 at 237-239 Langley Road, which is to allow 4 single-family attached dwellings in 2 buildings and to waive certain dimensional requirements. That's what I'm reading. Is that true, or is it 3 units? I thought it was 3. I think this is written wrong on our agenda. You're looking for 3 units also. We're just having some typos on the agenda issue tonight. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Terry Morris, and I'm an attorney representing the Mr. Acevedo and his wife, owners of the property at 237, 239 Langley Road. First of all, I want to apologize for my attire this evening. I do have another life, and I came straight here from the Little League ball field where I was coaching, not knowing when you would arrive at my docket item. The good news is we won a game, and we have one more game to win the championship, Little League. Thank you for your indulgence. If I may, I have an offsite. Gabriel Acevedo, the petitioner's son, is running the virtual for me. If he could share the screen, that would be wonderful.
The clerk just gave.
Okay, there we go. Can everyone see that? This is a project that was the public hearing was first opened on December 10th of 2024, some 6 months ago. At that time, the petitioners were representing themselves pro se, which can create its own problems. A couple of months later, they had contacted me to give them some help. So I became more actively engaged in this project more recently in March of this year. Given the length of time that has passed since you last heard, I think it's worth just summarizing the project itself. As the chair pointed out, you see on the screen, you see an existing 2-family dwelling on site. At the rear of the property, just to the left of the house, you see a garage. That garage is to be replaced with a new 2-story dwelling, essentially, to provide a 3rd unit on the site. That configuration leads one to treat this as an attached dwelling project. The site itself, actually, can we go to the next slide, Gabriel? Showing them. This is an old area map. You can see outlined in yellow the odd shape of this site. Most of this is the largest lot on that side of the street, which is zone multi-residence 1. immediately adjacent to that large blank area is the Hebrew College site, which is zoned for single residence. The odd shape of this site is further magnified by the fact that there's a 12-foot elevation change from back of sidewalk to the back of the lot, which actually creates its own problems. If we could go back to the photograph, Gabe, people can get a better, you can see how the site slopes up onto, at the rear. One of the first things I did, of course, having been brought in late to the party, so to speak, was to look at the minutes of the meeting, the land use meeting that were held that night. There were a number of concerns expressed by, well, I'm pleased to report that there were actually people in the neighborhood at 221 Langley who had appeared in support of the project, as well as one or two other people who supported the project. To the best of my knowledge, there were no opponents. But the thing that intrigued me was, of course, the comments made by various counselors about the plans. Unfortunately, those reports don't mention who said what. But nonetheless, I did set forth to try to address the concerns and questions that were posed that night. If we could go to, I think we're going to skip forward to the very last image. Yes, thank you. The reason I'm going to this is the site plan, and the reason why I switched to this site plan is it gives you an idea. We are requesting a number of dimensional waivers, largely dictated by the slope of the lot and the unusual shape of the lot. You can see part of the problem is that once you go to attached dwellings, you're subject to a much more stringent setback controls and other dimensional controls than you would for a single or two-family house. This being an existing house, you can see that we're about 5.5 feet on the right-hand side from the lot line. That obviously requires relief. We are proposing, we're asking for a waiver of one parking stall. We would ordinarily need 2 per unit, which would be 6. We're proposing on site. We're proposing 5 outdoor spaces. You can see immediately to the left of the front house, another outdoor space behind that, and 2 more next to the proposed building in the back. There is one space located in the new building to be constructed on the site. There was some concern about the number of automobiles here located on the site, and the reason I brought this sheet up is to show you that there was turning radii that were established for showing that it is possible to navigate entry and exit from each of the parking spaces on site, as shown on this graphic. Obviously, one of the big concerns was open space. The original proposal had open space at, unbelievable. I couldn't believe it when I saw it, 37.8%, knowing that the minimum required is 50. I thought that was pretty big ask. And so we set about trying to deal with that immediately. I do know that one counselor, who I believe was identified as Councilor Leary, had asked a question about whether the driveway could be reduced in width. The original driveway was proposed to 22 feet wide. I'm happy to report that the current site plan was reduced to 17. We took a number of other steps and actually increased the open space to 50.2%, which eliminated the need for that particular zoning relief. One of the things that argues for this petition is the fact that the project is being motivated by the fact that Mr. Acevedo and his bride of nine decades, they're blessed to have shared 9 decades of their life, are proposing to move out of the 2-family house where they now reside and build this new unit in the back. If we could go to the floor plans, could we go to the floor plans, Gabriel? There is the first floor plan. These units are one of the positive comments that was made by members of the committee, and actually at least one person in the neighborhood who commented on it, was that this is a small unit. It is actually 970 square feet of living space on 2 floors. You can see to the left there on the first floor plan is where the garage is accommodated. There's another little less than 400 square feet on the first floor for the kitchen dining area, and the second floor, which is larger, 780 square feet, contains the bedroom space on the upper floor. It was this fact, I think, that was particularly attractive to people who are looking at it, members that we were providing opportunity for them to basically age in place by creating this third unit on the site. So one of the last, we spent considerable time straightening out the plans, making sure everything was consistent. Can we go to the benefit, can we go to this plan summary? Take the second sheet there. Second sheet. As I said, the project summary is the replacement of a detached garage with a 970 square foot dwelling unit to accommodate the current owner's downsizing. How we addressed previous meetings, questions and concerns, as I pointed out, we've increased the open space as shown there to 52%. Now the driveway, lot coverage was also an interesting criteria because the lot coverage limitation for single and 2-family houses is 30%. The lot coverage limitation for attached dwellings is 25%. It's one of those, but in either case, we are below the 25% for attached dwellings. I want to correct one thing that was noted in the planning report. Maybe this is late information, but we had talked about doing permeable pavers, and I can report, in addition to the parking areas, which will be permeable pavers, the entire driveway will be as well. Most recent change, and the reason why I don't show it is because I don't want to be embarrassed to show it. Most of the planting in the previous landscape plan that I inherited was pointed out to me contains a number of invasive species and non-native plants. And so I have put that in there and represent to you that we will in fact be planting non-invasive plants and native plants, and therefore would certainly welcome the standard condition that approval of the final landscape plan be done by the planning department. With that, Madam Chair, the last thing, and this was a suggestion made by Ms. Wewell, that we provide profiles. And Gabe, if we could go to the proposed site plan, that was a concern expressed in the department report for everyone who read it. We made a commitment to provide this plan. It was a late request, but nonetheless, you will see on this particular plan, it's particularly important to note out that on page 3 of the planning department report, they were requesting us to provide a signed and stamped site plan, which should include the following: proposed conditions, zoning table, building heights for the proposed building and the existing dwelling. We did confirm that they would be submitted, and they were uploaded, and here they are. We not only have the profile for the existing house, we have the profile for the new proposed building in the back, and we have the profile for the existing garage. All of these things on this site plan, which stamp isn't shown on this clip, but we submitted the signed and stamped plan. With that, Madam Chair, that will conclude our formal presentation. We appreciate the opportunity to come back and here for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I hope your team wins the next game too.
I'll pray a novena.
You're tied 1-1. You need to win the next game. Ms. Wewell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I will go through the planning presentation. So we have petition 478-24. The public hearing was originally opened December 10th, 2024, and has been continued to tonight. This is a special permit to allow 3 single-family attached dwellings in 2 buildings and to waive dimensional requirements as well as 1 parking stall. So the subject property is located on Langley Road in Newton Center. The site and most of the other properties on the west side of the street are zoned multi-residence 1, while the eastern half is zoned single residence 2. Abutting the rear of the site is the Hebrew College, which is zoned single residence 3. The land use of the surrounding neighborhood is mostly multifamily with private education as well as single family residential uses. The site is within 1/2 mile of the Newton Center MBTA Green Line station. The petitioner proposes to raise the existing detached garage and construct a new building containing 1 dwelling unit. Considering the existing 2-family, the new construction will result in 3 single-family attached dwellings on the site in 2 separate structures. Relief is required to allow the use, and there's some dimensional relief, such as to allow a reduced lot area, reduce the required frontage to reduce lot area per unit, reduce the minimum side and rear setbacks, to waive 1 parking stall to reduce the minimum stall depth, to allow the driveway within 10 feet of the side lot line, parking within 20 feet of the side lot line, and to allow parking within the side setback. The plans submitted for this hearing showed an updated open space calculation from about 38% to 50.2% open space. So this relief was originally requested. In addition to the plan, we also requested a statement from the applicant that they no longer require this relief, which they have provided. When reviewing the request, the council should consider whether the site is an appropriate location for the proposed single-family attached dwellings as designed, whether they will not adversely affect the neighborhood, whether they will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, whether access is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and whether literal compliance with the required lot area, frontage, lot area per unit, side and rear setbacks is impracticable, and whether literal compliance with the parking requirements is impracticable. So just an update and some analysis is that planning requested has been provided, as Attorney Morris noted, showing all building heights and the zoning table all on 1 plan. Planning notes that the proposed building is set back into the site and it will maintain, that residential context of the surrounding buildings while allowing for 1 additional dwelling unit. However, we do note that this project requires several items of relief to allow for this expanded driveway and all the required parking on site. This will result in an increase in paving and a reduction of open space on an already undersized lot. We are supportive of the waiver of 1 stall given the location, size, and orientation of the lot, and the existing nonconformities. However, due to the site's location within 1/2 mile of the Newton Center MBTA station, staff would be supportive of a greater parking waiver, such as decreasing that ratio to 1 car per unit or less to allow for increased open space on site. So I think that is a trade-off planning would be supportive of, to see some more green space on site and reduce the parking associated below 2 cars per unit. So that concludes the planning presentation. Happy to answer any questions or bring up any plans.
Thank you. While we have you here, just for a visual for us to look at, I'm sure that the committee all did look at their packet, but we didn't see tonight the elevation of what this addition would look like. Could you put plans up for us to look at? We've been talking tonight about the appearance of.
We have those as well.
I have them in the plan form instead of presentation, so I'm happy to share
Or
them.
perhaps Gabriel could.
Oh.
If you don't have the there's an elevation. There we go. Thank you. It's not shown as it attaches to the existing house anywhere, is it?
No, it does not attach the existing.
Yeah.
Not attached.
This is a standalone building, so
It's detached.
it's close, but yes.
Okay.
It's 3
Detached.
feet away, I think is noted in the memo.
And thank you for updating that site plan to show particularly the grades, the existing and proposed. That was a missing thing, and we're happy to see that again. Okay, are there some members, any members of the public who would like to speak? I saw a few names before that I recognized that I wondered if we're here for this. No, no hands from the public. Okay, we will take it into committee. Counselor Downs, followed by Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. I would support planning's recommendation to reduce the parking to 1 space per unit in order to make this slightly less parking dominated and just go better with the aesthetics. Other than that, I think this is a fine proposal and I would support it.
Thank you, Counselor Downs. Counselor Lucas?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Morris, congratulations, first of all. Hopefully
Thank
you didn't,
you.
yeah, hopefully you didn't trade your best player for a, you know, pennies on a dollar.
One more game Thursday night.
All right, yeah,
Not number 11, no.
trade him in the offseason. So I just want to be absolutely certain what we are going to approve tonight. So I understand your client lives in the current principal home, correct?
Correct.
And that's a 2-family home.
Yes, it is.
And they are going to move into the new, call it the new home.
Yes, that's
All right.
correct.
And you said that the, can your client put up the floor plans? I just want to make sure we're looking
Gabriel,
all
you
at the
still
same
with us?
thing.
Gabriel, can you put up the, Gabe? Here we go. The floor plans, looking for the floor plans.
Rest of the new unit.
Okay, so the first floor, you have a living room, bathroom, closet in the
Kitchen.
at the garage that's there. Can you go to the second floor?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I again, we don't usually cover the inside of homes. But if I heard you correctly, you said your clients are going to move in there to age in place. But I'm counting 3 bedrooms.
Yes. Yes, and a set of stairs.
Yeah. That's what I just don't, I don't get it.
You're conferring.
Yeah. Take your time.
I think, in discussing with my client, the architect who drew these plans labeled them as bedrooms. I always find that troubling, given the fact that those rooms can be used for some other purpose. Want to speak, boys? Grandsons are here today. My understanding is they could be used as guest, the 3rd bedroom would be used as a guest bedroom.
They are the translators.
Is the answer.
Good evening.
Great.
My name is Nader Acevedo, and I'm the owner of the 239 Langley with my wife. The reason for us to ask for 3 bedrooms is that I had these 2 guys. Come here.
Grandson?
These are my two grandsons. Who you are?
Can you just speak into the mic? We can't hear.
Microphone.
I'm Nico.
Hi, Nico.
Hi, I'm Lucas.
Hi, Lucas. You're the grandsons who are going to be occasionally staying in the guest rooms of the 2nd floor apartment of your grandparents' new place? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess they are bedrooms, Mr. Morris.
Okay, well, I'm glad I.
Yeah, thank you very much. They spend time with me. My son Gabe, he's running the PowerPoint, and he can talk a little bit more about the 3 bedrooms. They come here and visit me. My son, he was here with his wife just a week ago. And these guys, they come summers and spend time with me. They are registered in the city of Newton as potential voters. Nico is thinking of going to school. He may go to BU. He may go to Boston College. So really, we needed the bedrooms for these two guys. And plus that we have another one. We had the oldest one. His name is Esteban. So I think that we can use the 3 bedrooms.
And moving into the front 2 units there that you're currently living in, are other family members going to be moving into those units when you move into this new garage one?
He's going to be living in a 2-unit.
The 2-unit. The one that I own now? Yeah. Okay. We rent one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the first floor is rented now. And eventually we will rent the second and the third. It's a 2-unit with 3 floors. I showed to you Mr. Allen. Mr. Allen, he was he was this morning in my house, and I explained it to him. We have a first floor, a second floor, and a third floor that I built in 1998 because I have 2 sons and a daughter. So we use the third floor. Eventually, we will rent the 2 units.
For some reason, I thought I had heard that other family members were going to be living in those first, the 2 units and the 2 family. But you're actually definitely planning to rent one of them, and there's not another family member moving in. These grandsons will be staying with you in your new place, not in one of the units in the 2 family?
I don't think so because I have sisters and brothers in Boston, but I don't think so.
Okay, I'm just trying to get this story straight. It's not really necessarily relevant. It's just, we've all heard different versions of who's going to be living where, and I thought we could all get on the same page and understand it. So thank you. Okay,
Okay, can I?
yes.
Okay, all right. So this is more of a technical issue because it's single family attached. The 2 buildings are not attached, which is fine. But it looks like the primary building is just a standard 2-family home, no? And how does that count as, if I'm out of line, just say so, but it doesn't seem like it's single family attached.
It's my understanding that the ordinance was more recently changed to allow this kind of situation where you have 2 buildings with one of them being a freestanding single-family unit.
I thought you needed separate, and I could be wrong, I thought you needed separate entrances
No,
for your 2-family.
that was changed.
Miss Wewell, I know I'm putting you on the spot, sorry, but.
No worries. Yeah, I'm just flipping through my ordinance. I thought the same as you, that the entrance and needed to be separate. So let me just try to locate that definition. I think it's in section 1.
Okay.
But it was changed recently. That just allowed for a standalone 1 unit, and it
Yeah, that one I get. It's the principal.
yep.
Go on, sorry.
Oh, so I guess single family attached, a building or structure that contains so that that one doesn't apply. So a grouping of principal buildings containing more than 2 units total. So I think if we're just looking at that definition, there is no specification about the access as there is in the earlier one. So reading it on its face, there are no additional access requirements for this configuration.
On the floor plan of the first floor plan, because we're now looking at the second floor plan with the 3 bedrooms and the 2 bathrooms, there is a separate entrance, correct?
I think Counselor Lucas is referring to the 2-family that is going to be converted into 2 single-family attached.
Yeah, just that normally when we see single family attached, it's primarily new construction. And it's townhouse styles where each unit has its own entrance.
Side by
I'm not
side.
certain if that's the case here, and that was the basis of my question.
I think, and if I heard correctly, I think the answer to the question is that the ordinance was changed not to require that side-by-side entry for all 3 units.
Okay, yeah, I don't think I've seen it like this before. I could be wrong, but
I think there was one on Chapel Street you approved the same way.
the one that's not going to get built?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That one.
I thought it was 3 entrances and 3 units, but
This will be an
I
IS.
think,
yeah.
so I think Counselor Lucas, if there were 3 units all in one building, that would fall under C1,
Multifamily.
which does require separate primary and secondary access. However, this falls under C2, which just allows for a grouping of principal buildings containing more than 2 units in total. So that sub-definition doesn't further, I think it's kind of a language thing or a semantics thing, but on its face, there are no entry requirements in this configuration as proposed in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Wewell. That's very helpful. I appreciate it. You too, Mr. Morris. Those were my that was my primary question, just the layout of the building and the entrances. With respect to the setbacks you're building into, you're abutting a wooded area, which then goes uphill to a small college campus. So I have no concerns about that. With respect to the parking, I'm fine with it as is. If your clients need, the additional parking, 2 parking stalls in the principal building, 4 parking stalls for 2 dwelling units, I think that's fine. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Councilor Roberts. Did you have your hand up? I wrote your
I
name.
just wanted to know the difference between this proposal and an ADU. What, can somebody clarify that? Why isn't this an ADU?
Size-wise, it could be. Ms. Wewell, can you answer that? Or perhaps
I
Mr.
don't think
Andrew
we've
Lee?
done an analysis on whether this could qualify as an ADU. It may be too large, but I don't have that answer
It's
right
only-
now.
it
I'm not
is.
sure if the
It's only
petitioner,
970 square feet.
I don't know if the
Limitation
petitioner
is
can.
900, isn't it? Isn't the limitation 900? Yes.
Oh, that was 1,000.
What, Randy?
Perhaps,
1,000?
Andrew Lee, do you know the answer to that?
And my,
I don't know the answer, unfortunately, off the top of my head, because the maximum size is dependent on other factors with regards to how old the building is. So I believe it's 900. However, I do know that we allowed other allowances by right. I can check, but I'm not certain that this would qualify as by right if it's greater than 900.
is it worth clarifying that? Because if it were just by right,
I believe the option has been brought up to the applicant, but they decided not to go the ADU route and that this is the configuration and relief they want to ask for.
Okay, thank you.
can I better understand why? I'm just,
I think the
Don't
applicant would
know.
be.
I don't have the answers to that question. Why did you not? The accessory dwelling unit
You want to talk?
rather than treating it three units independently. The difference is, I don't think my client understands the difference, and that is that if you have an ADU, you cannot separate the ownership of that unit, the ADU from the other unit. At least one of the other units, is that correct?
It would be
We need you to speak into the microphone too.
You can't separate the ownership. You can't have you can't sell them as condominiums, 3 separate condominiums.
Oh, so that's,
I'm not saying that that's what they
Here.
want to do, but I'm just telling you that's one limit, that would be one. If I were
Oh.
representing someone else, that might be someone else, they're not moving.
okay.
But we do know, you must remember that controversy that happened on Church Street years ago when someone got an accessory dwelling unit and they then created it and sold it separately. I'm dating myself, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, there with you. Okay, he doesn't want it to be an ADU. The petitioner does not want that. Any other questions, Councilor Lebovitz? No. Okay.
Oh, one comment, I'd support the recommendation of a waiver for fewer spaces.
Elimination of one of the parking spots, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Leary?
Well, now that we've got all that sorted, sounds like we're not quite sure how we're gonna how we're gonna define this new housing configuration. I guess we know it's not an ADU. But I'm pleased with the changes that have been made, and I support the planning department, Councilor Downs and Councilor Libovitz's suggestion or recommendation about reducing the parking. I think that's a really important thing, and I wouldn't support it without it. I think it's a half mile from Newton Center Green Line, and it's walkable. And it would free up a lot more open space. And of course, fewer cars is always better for the neighbors and for the city. I know the boys won't mind getting on the Green Line going to BC.
Perhaps Mr. Morris will confer with Mr. Acevedo while we continue to chat to see if that would be an acceptable change for him to only have 4 parking spots instead of 5. If you think that can be a
I
conversation.
don't know how you'd handle that. Is that you're going to require an amendment to the application?
Ms.
Madam
Weaver?
Chair, I believe since I mean, maybe Attorney Andrew Lee can jump in too, but they've already requested the relief to reduce a parking stall. So if approved, that relief has already been noticed and advertised. I just, if now the relief would be to waive 2 parking stalls, I would look to the law department on whether that could be conditioned.
Yes, Andrew Lee?
Yes, we believe that it could be conditioned for the reasons that Ms. Weeble just stated, because the notice did make clear that that is the kind of relief that's being requested and cites the appropriate section of the zoning ordinance.
Great, so much easier. And if, in that case, I would ask you and your client to make all of the stalls 9 feet by 19 feet in size. That would be my request while we're talking about parking.
Well, can I respond to that? Because you and I talked about this. Council Leary may be interested in this response. I've always objected to the 9 by 19 as being excessive. And since there's so much concern about we're ripping up portions of the street to create more, reduce the heat island effect. Why do we have to have 9 by 19? That standard has been, ever since they adopted parking, that was the standard. The fact that some people have SUVs doesn't mean that you should still have it. I asked for that relief, and I think it contributes to the reduction of the parking.
If you only have 4 parking stalls on site, I think each could be long enough to accommodate the vehicles of the standard size recommendation. And you and I do just disagree about
Yes.
this. I think it's important to meet that size, especially with an odd configuration like you've got going on in this driveway where there's a lot of backing up that has to happen. I would like to see each stall adequately sized. Councillor Block.
Thank you, Chair. Could someone put back the site plan that shows the parking, the proposed parking
Gabriel,
stalls?
go to the circulation one. That more clearly demonstrates the parking. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Which of those spaces would you eliminate?
Well, it's not for me to really comment on
Oh,
that.
the one it voices one of the 2 at the top.
Yes.
Or
Sure.
the one in the middle.
The 2, first of all, let me just say, I think that 2 parking stalls each for the 2 families that are living in the current dwelling, and 1 parking stall for the new house, let's call it, is perfectly reasonable from a utilization standpoint. So I guess I part company with Counselor Downs and perhaps Counselor Leary, if that's what you were suggesting. And I'm not really sure that that's what Counselor Lebovitz was suggesting, but he can address that. But this is a very crowded site, and the two parking stalls that are nearly touching, what is the distance between those two stalls at its closest point?
Well, remember, it's the stall, it's the dimensions of the stall, and those aren't not the cars
Well,
themselves.
I appreciate that. So it's, so what are the dimensions? 9 by 18?
9 by 18.
9 by 18, and using 9 by 18, what is the distance between the outline of those stalls?
Those rear bumpers that the driver of the car to the right could walk
Right.
by.
Right, or yes. Do you happen to know what that distance is? It doesn't look very much. And that's a hazard.
Probably a foot.
Yeah, it kind of, yeah, it's,
You know, the other thing, Councilor Block, when we talked about ADU, if this were an ADU, you'd only have one parking space required.
I understand, and I'm not disputing the relief that you're requesting of one parking stall. I think personally, the number of stalls that you're asking for is perfectly reasonable, given the number of families that presumably will eventually live on this site, but it's highly constrained. And it just raises the question about whether it's too crowded. I want to approve this. I appreciate the motivation of the owner to have a private dwelling and to age in place. That's wonderful. And asking for 5 parking stalls instead of 6 is perfectly reasonable. This is very tight. Very tight. And I don't know what to suggest other than, well, if you can live with 4 parking stalls, then I guess that means the new dwelling would get 1, and the existing dwelling, the 2 units there, one would get 2 and one would have only 1. And that's probably not optimal given this neighborhood, despite the proximity to Newton Center. A lot of people have 2 cars anyway. Most people have 2 cars anyway. So I don't know what to suggest, but it's very crowded.
Mr. Morris, did you tell me that Mr. Acevedo and his wife each have a car and they need 2 parking spots?
We were just discussing that, Madam Chair. You'd have to talk to her. You know what the issue is.
If they live there and they have 2 cars and they need 2 cars, they're gonna take 2 of the parking spaces. He owns the property, and he and his wife each want a car.
Good evening. My name is Gabriel Acevedo. My
Oh.
parents have 2 vehicles, just how you stated. Those vehicles on the left-hand side, those 2 parking spots, could they park back to back instead of side to side? Could that be a proposition? So move this spot to here?
Then they're gonna have to shuffle their cars every day to get in and out, but sure.
Which is what
I
they,
think, Gabriel, I think your father is at the microphone wanting to speak, so let's just hear what he has to say. if
Sure.
that's Okay. Go ahead.
Again, my answer to the 2 cars is that, again, I'm not planning to leave Newton. I'm planning to stay with my wife. We spend most of the time here in Newton, but also I'm thinking about my grandsons. They're going to be Nick already drives, and yes, that's why I need the spaces. And to be honest, I'm sure that he may go to school in Boston, and yes, I mean, and also Gay, my son, they visit me, so that's why I needed the 2 parking spaces.
You're saying you really would like these 5 parking spaces. Okay, let's just keep it that simple.
And to add, the existing home where my parents currently live, it's a 3,000 square foot home. It has 4 bedrooms. It is, let's just say, good size. The home that they'd be moving into, as you can see, it does have quite a few bedrooms. But as for maintenance and just, we're looking at possibly 1,000 square feet. So they are downsizing. And like we said, Nico and Lucas, when they're visiting, they could be able to sleep in these rooms.
Thank you, Gay. Also, I mean, my daughter, Patricia, she's on the call. She was here 2 weeks ago, and also she drove. I mean, she drives, and they visit me. Patricia was here 2 weeks ago. So that, I mean,
Your family visits you, you want the parking spots, we've got it. I think we need to wrap it up. Mr. Morris, what is it you look urgent to say?
I think that 5th parking space is largely serves as a visitor space. And to that extent, then it's not contributing to the everyday ins and outs of the automobiles.
I interpret it the same way. I'm like Counselor Block. For me, given this situation and this funny site and this family situation, I'm not opposed to the 5 places. I want to check in though with Counselors Leary and Downs and anyone else, perhaps Lobovitz, if it's a deal breaker for them to have these, if they're going to vote against this project, I'd like to know that now so I can figure out if we're going to proceed with this. You said that you would not vote for it if it had all these parking spaces?
That's
Counselor Leary?
correct. I think it's a jumbled mess in there, and I think they could do with few, it's just not, it's not a special permit. I mean, when we do a special permit, we want it to, meet certain guidelines and make it work. This does not work. It's just got a pile of cars and all in one little small spot.
Counselor Downs? Counselor Downs?
Yeah, I see where Councilor Leary is coming from, but given the and I think eventually, if this house changes hands, they might actually do with fewer cars just because of that. Because it's going to be difficult to navigate with the parking spaces the way they are and just all that asphalt. But at any rate, and you're going out onto Langley Road. But it's not a deal breaker for me.
Okay. And I'm going to say that I think if we make them remove one of those spots, that they're going to park there anyway. I think they're just going to pull their car right up there and park there, even if we tell them not to. So I'm not sure how effective this is going to be. Councilor Lobovitz, is the number of parking spots a deal breaker for you? No. Okay. I think we're ready to move forward. Unless there are any other concerns, I don't see any other hands raised. It's almost 10 o'clock. This is in your ward. Would you like to make a motion?
I move to close the public hearing.
All in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is closed and
I move to accept the petitioner's application,
okay,
special permit.
thank you. Let's look at findings and conditions.
Sure, I will share my screen. I may need a little help figuring out where we landed with any parking, but we can get to that with the conditions. So
We didn't change it,
okay, I'll take that out.
including the size.
Okay. So here we have the findings. So the site is an appropriate location for the use. It's located in a multi-residence 1 zoning district, and the new construction is set far back from the front property line. It will not adversely affect the neighborhood. The new building will be subordinate to the roof line of the existing building, and is set back from the street more than what is required by zoning. It will not create a nuisance or serious hazard because the existing curb cut will be maintained in the same location and orientation. Access of the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. Literal compliance with the parking is impractical due to the existing size and shape of the lot, which has several nonconformities, including substandard frontage and lot size. Creating an additional parking stall still would further decrease the non-conforming open space and would require additional relief due to the orientation and size of the lot. Literal compliance with the standards for side and rear setbacks, reduction in lot area, frontage, lot area per unit is impracticable due to the placement of the existing two-family dwelling and the topography of the site. The site lends itself to one additional dwelling unit due to its location within 1/2 mile of transit. So we'll move on to the conditions. We have the standard building permit condition, the site plan, and I will update that with the one received this week. Architectural plans, the elevations, and the landscaping plan. I think we may have a new one as well. Condition 2, I've added based on Attorney Morris's statement that the driveway will be permeable materials. I just wanted to confirm that the parking will too. I think Attorney Morris only said the driveway.
No, I believe he said driveway
Oh,
and
okay.
parking, and he's nodding, so I
Got
think
it.
correct.
Thanks. Standard operations and maintenance plan. They standard rodent control plan, construction management plan, standard building permit, standard occupancy, and landscaping to maintain that landscaping. So that concludes going over the order.
Thank you. Before we take this vote, I just would like to ask Mr. Morris a clarifying question. I'm not sure if I heard this properly. I very much appreciate that you're not going to stick with the previously proposed planting plan that was mostly non-native and partly invasive species. That's a good change. But did you say that the planning department is going to create the final plan or?
No, we
Okay.
will.
Okay,
Yeah.
because they're not, that is not their
We will.
competency. So perfect.
I expect it's a condition in the.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, I think we're ready to vote. Roll call.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Abstain.
Counselor Lobovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
President Laredo. The motion passes 6 yeas, 1 abstention.
Perfect.
Chair members, thank you for the extended time with the hearing and letting us make our case. Thank you.
We're adjourned.